Hello class, welcome to Statistics and Probability. In this video, we're going to focus our discussion on the different properties of discrete probability distribution and on application of probability in real-life situations. So our learning objectives is to determine whether a distribution represents a discrete probability distribution and to solve problems applying probability distribution and probability in real-life situation. So for your answers in the different problems given, you may access the link I sent to you last time in our GC. So dun sa ating Padlet, you can upload your answers for part 1, 2, and 3. And then you may resume watching after answering the given problems. Okay, so part 1. So yan, properties of discrete probability distribution. So for the following problems, determine whether the following distributions serve as a discrete probability distribution. So if it is a probability distribution, just write a probability distribution, and if not, just state which property or properties is or are not met. Then write your answers in padlet.com under part 1 answers. So here are the problems. So you may pause this video, then just resume watching after uploading your answers in Padlet. Okay, so let's discuss the answers to the problem. So there are two properties of discrete probability distribution. So first we have the first property states that the probability of each value of random variables must be between or equal to 0 and 1. So in symbol, we write it as the probability of x or p sub x is greater than or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 1. So meaning, wala tayong probability that is itawag dito, negative. We don't have negative probabilities, and we don't have probabilities that is more than 1. So for example, we don't have a probability that is 1.001 or 1.1 or 2, because the probability, first property of a probability is that it must be greater than or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 1. The second property is that the sum of the probabilities of all the values of the random variable must be equal to 1. So in symbol, we write it as the summation of p of x is equal to 1. So if we have a probability distribution with the corresponding probabilities for each of the random variable, if we get the sum, so kapag inadd natin isa-isa yung probability ng kada random variable of an specific experiment, then the answer must be equal to 1. So the sum of all the probabilities of the random variable must be equal to 1. So let's answer problem number 1. Oh, okay. So these properties help in determining whether a given distribution represents a discrete probability distribution. So for number 1, these are the given. Ayan. So we have here random variable x, where x is equal to 1, 5, 8, 7, and 9. And the corresponding probabilities are 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. All are 1/3. So first step is to examine our probabilities. So examine each of the probabilities according to the property. So we have two properties. So ang first property natin is that the probability must be between or equal to 0 and 1. Ayan. So yung kada probability, si 1, probability ng variable, random variable x, where x is equal to 1, is 1/3. So si 1/3, this is 1/3 is ayan, greater than 0 but less than 1. So ibig sabihin, pasok siya sa property 1. So since pare-pareho silang 1/3, so we know that property 1 was achieved. So na-meet natin yung ating property number 1. So the probabilities of each of the random variable is 1/3. So 1/3 is greater than 0 and less than 1. So therefore, it meets property number 1. So second is that we need to examine it according to property number 2. So property number 2 states that the summation or the sum of the probabilities must be equal to 1. So if we look at the sum of the probabilities, ayan. So if we look at the sum, 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, so the answer will be 5/3 or 1 and 2/3. So therefore, this distribution did not meet property number 2. So since hindi niya na-meet yung property number 2, for our conclusion, ayan. So this distribution is not a discrete probability distribution. So ang reason natin, because the sum of the probabilities is greater than 1, therefore did not meet property number 2. For problem number 2, yan yung random variables natin, 1, 2, 3, and 5. And the corresponding probabilities are 1/4, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/8. So, for property number 1, so nakikita naman natin that 1/8 is greater than 0, but less than 1. And the same as 1/4, greater than 0 and less than 1. So, therefore, property number 1 was met. But property number 2, if we get the sum of these probabilities, so 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/4 plus 1/8, it is less than 1. So, dapat equal. Para ma-meet niya si property number 2, it must be equal to 1. So, therefore, yung distribution natin for problem number 2 is not a discrete probability distribution. And the reason is that the probabilities, which is 3/4, is less than 1, therefore, does not meet property number 2. For problem number 3, given natin is 0, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So, corresponding probability, we have 1/3, 2/3, 1/6, 7/6, and 1/3. So, for property number 1, sabi dito, property number 1 was not met since one of the probabilities is greater than 1. So, here, although 1/3, 2/3, 1/6, and 1/3 is less than and greater than 0, but less than 1, but 7/6 is greater than 1. So, therefore, property number 1 was not met. For property number 2, ayan, hindi rin niya na-meet yung property number 2 because if we get the sum of the probabilities, we will get 8/3 or 8/3. So thus, the sum of the probabilities for this distribution is greater than 1. So therefore, for our conclusion, we can say that the distribution is not a discrete probability distribution because both properties were not met. And for problem number 4, ayan, for problem number 4, we have here the random variables are 1, 5, 8, 7, and 9. And the corresponding probabilities are 0, negative 0.25, 0.25, 0.5, and 0.5. So, pareho to, 0.50, 0.50. Wait lang. So, pareho yan, 0.50. So, again, class, this problem is found in your module. So, doon sa module ninyo, meron akong mali na inilagay. So, dapat ang andun ay 0.50, not 0.75. So, hanapin nyo na lang doon sa ating module. So, let's examine it according to the property. So, for property number 1, so, hindi niya na-meet kasi yung isa sa ating probability ay less than 0. So, wala tayong negative na probability. For property number 2, if we get the sum of all the probabilities given, it is equal to 1. So, although hindi na-meet yung number 1, na-meet natin yung number 2. However, kapag gagawa na tayo ng conclusion, since hindi natin na-meet yung number 1, so this distribution does not serve as a discrete probability distribution because one of the probabilities is less than 0. So, therefore, did not meet property number 1 and is not a probability distribution. So, therefore, for distribution to be a discrete probability distribution, both of the properties must be met. So, dapat pasok siya doon sa property 1 and as well as sa second property. So, let's now move on to our part 2, applying probabilities. Direction: determine the probability of the following events. Then write your answers in padlet.com under part 2 answers. So here's our problem. Using the data below, find the following. So we have here our probability distribution. We have the number of cars represented by X and the corresponding probabilities. Ayan. So our problem is that to find the probability where the random variable x is greater than or equal to 5 but to 1 but less than or equal to 5, and find the probability where x is greater than 8. So suppose that this random variable x here is represent the number of cars sold in a day. Okay, so you have you can pause this video and then resume watching after you uploaded your answers in Padlet. So here is our solution for letter A. So letter A, we are asked to find the probability where random variable x is between or equal to 1 and 5. So we have this probability. So let us look at the probability, the random variables included. So sabi dito, random variable x is equal to 1. So therefore, 1 is included and less than or equal to 5. So therefore, 5 is included. And since this is an interval between 1 to 5, so everything in between 1 to 5 is included. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, and 4 are also included. So we need to find the probability that either of these either of these random variable will occur, will become the outcome of the experiment. So the corresponding probability, step 2 is to find the corresponding probability. So in our probability distribution table, we have here the corresponding probabilities: 0.15, 0.25, 0.14, 0.09, and 0.08. And then we just need to get the sum of these probabilities to find the probability that any of these event will occur. So when we add, if we add all these corresponding probabilities, we will have this sum, which is equal to 0.71 or 71%. So meaning there is a 71% chance that the car dealer would sell 1 car in a day, 2 cars or 2 cars or 3 cars or 4 or 5 cars in a day. Part B, sabi dito, find the probability where random variable x is greater than 8. So 8 is not included because x is greater than 8. So therefore, what are the values of the random variable that is greater than 8? So you have here 9 and 10. And their corresponding probabilities are 0.025 and 0.015. So if we get the sum of these two probabilities, then we will have 0.04 or 4%. So we only have 4% chance of selling 9 to 10 cars in a day. So constructing a probability distribution helps to model our world, so enabling us to obtain estimates of the probability that a certain event may occur or estimate the variability of occurrence. So for example, in our previous answers, solutions. So here, we can estimate the chances of this event to occur. So we have only 4% chance of this event to occur, and we can compare it that the previous one have higher chances of occurring. So dito 71. So ibig sabihin magkakaiba-iba yung chances o yung probability ng random variables o ng outcome. So let's have another example. So the same situation, but yan. Let's go to our problem. So it's the same situation lang siya. So using the following data in our probability distribution table, so find the probability that the store will sold at most 2 cars in a day and the probability that the store will sold 7 or more cars in a day. So dito hindi na tayo binigyan ng probability notation, but we need to look at the description. So yan. So this is an implicit description. So hindi siya direktang binibigay. So we have here at most 2 cars and we have here 7 or more cars. So paano natin siya i-represent? So before we go to the solution, I would like to correct something in our module. So in our module, nailagay ko doon at least doon sa ating problem. So hanapin niyo na lang doon sa module natin yung the same problem. So dapat doon sa example natin, dapat ang nakalagay doon is at most, not at least. So kapag at least ang notation niya, probability notation, for example, at least 2. dapat ang probability notation niya is that the probability where the random variable x is greater than or equal to 2 because at least 2 meaning 2 yung pinakamababa. Pero kapag at most, ibig sabihin 2 na yung pinakamataas. So therefore, kapag represent natin to, probability where x is less than or equal to 2. This is at most, ito. And this is at least. Okay, so let's now go to the solution for this problem, letter A and letter B. So again, we have 3 steps. So first is to determine the condition or the equality and inequality of the random variable. So here in part A, sabi dito, find the probability that the store will sold at most 2 cars. So meaning, ito yung ating condition. So dapat x is less than or equal to 2 because at most 2 cars in a day. So second step is to find the corresponding probabilities of the variables within the condition. So 2 is included and then less than 2. So what are the numbers less than 2? We have 1 and 0. So therefore, we need to get the corresponding probability. We have here 0.1, 0.15, and 0.25. And step 3 is to get the sum of the corresponding probabilities. 0.1 plus 0.15 plus 0.25 is equal to 0.5 or 50%. So we have 50% chance of selling 2 cars in a day, 1 car in a day, or pwede rin hindi ka makabenta ng kotse sa isang araw. So that is the probability that either of these random variables will happen. Hanggang 2 lang to. Random variables, 0, 1 to 2. And for letter B, so the same steps, determine the conditions. Sabi dito, sold 7 or more. So meaning 7 is included and the numbers greater than 7. So using probability notation, we can write it as the probability where the random variable x is greater than or equal to 7. Second step is to find the corresponding probability. So here we have 7 which is included and the numbers greater than 7 are 8, 9, and 10. And their corresponding probabilities are the following. So we have here 0.05, 0.04, 0.025, and 0.015. Step 3 is to get the sum of the corresponding probabilities. So the sum of the corresponding probabilities will give us 0.13 or 13% chance. So compare with our previous, yun sa letter A, dun sa letter A natin, ayan. So dito, we have higher chance. So meaning magkaiba yung chances of variability of occurrence ng mga outcomes. So dito, higher ang chance na makakabenta tayo. Pero pagdating dun sa second problem natin, lower na yung chance natin. 0.13 or 13% na lang. Okay, so our previous examples where we get the sum of the probabilities is just one way of applying probability in real life situation. We can also perform subtraction and multiplication together with addition kapag in-apply na natin yung probability. So the following slides will show us how to apply probabilities in real life situations. So different examples. So yan. So we are now in the election period. So suppose that we only have 6 presidentiables running for the position. If we get their chances of winning, so since we have here 6, we have Lenny, Pacquiao, Bongbong, Isko, Lacson, and Gagliardi. If we get their chances of winning, so we have here 1/6. So there is only one way that Lenny will be chosen as the new president. The same with the other. So compared to the other. So these are their chances of winning. So this is a probability distribution table. So dito, tao, hindi number. So tao ang nilagay natin dito. Question. What is the chance that Senator Manny Pacquiao will win the presidential election? So if we apply our previously learned concept to get the probability of an event, we just need to know, for example, the probability of Manny Pacquiao winning the election. So the number of Manny Pacquiao, the event occurring, and sample space. So we have here in our distribution table, nakita naman natin, isang beses lang pwedeng manalo si Pacquiao compared to the other. Isang beses lang mapipili si Manny Pacquiao compared to the other. So therefore, so dito, we have sample space natin, we have 6 total outcomes, and then isang Manny Pacquiao. So therefore 1/6. So this is his chance of winning the presidential election. So irregardless of the number of voters, voting population, so yung chance niya compared to the others, they all have equal chance, which is 1/6. So therefore, if we answer number 1, ang sagot natin dito is simply 1/6. How about questions number 2 and 3? So how do we answer this? So what is the chance that Senator Manny Pacquiao will not win the presidential election? So we have here not win the presidential election. And number 3, what is the chance that either BBM or Lenny wins the presidential election? So let us first define different terminologies before we discuss the different rules of probability. So probability of an outcome. The probability of an outcome, suppose that A is an outcome of an experiment. The probability of outcome A, denote as piece of A, is a number between 0 and 1. So these are one of the properties of a probability, indicating the proportion of the time that outcome A occurs in the long run. So itong probability, this just describes the equation, yung kaninang ginamit nating equation on how to get the probability. So parang ganyan. Probability of event is equal to the number of event occurring and number of sample space. That is our first definition here. So there are 3 types of outcomes. We have complementary outcomes or complements, we have disjoint outcomes, and then independent outcomes. So let us first define complements. So the complements of any outcome A, ayan. So for example, we have outcome A. The complement of outcome A is the event that outcome A does not occur. So meaning, if there is a chance that outcome A will occur, there is also a chance that will measure when outcome A will not occur. So hindi mangyayari, may chance na mangyari at may chance na hindi mangyari. And what are the values? So that is the complement. Yung chance that something will not occur. Or yung kabaliktaran, for example, ang given is the chance that something will not occur. Ano yung complement ng something na yon? So mamaya bibigyan natin yan ng example. Second is the disjoint outcome. So 2 outcomes are disjoint if they cannot occur at the same time. So for example, if we have a true or false na test, so if for example tell whether the statement is true or false. So it cannot be both true and false. So dapat true lang siya or false siya. So wala tayong sagot na trolls. Yan. So that is disjoint outcomes. So there are outcomes, 2 or more outcomes cannot occur simultaneously. Isa lang dapat. So either of them will occur or will not occur. And independent outcomes. 2 outcomes are independent if knowing that one outcome occurs, it does not change the probability that the other outcome will occur. So balikan natin yung true or false. For example, we have 2 items. Kapag true yung item number 1, hindi ibig sabihin na false na agad yung item number 2. Or hindi ibig sabihin na true din yung item number 2. So meaning, item number 2 is independent. The probability that item number 2 is true or false is independent from item number 1. So hindi maapektuhan ng probability nung isang outcome yung probability nung another outcome. So let us now go to the rules. So first rule is the converse rule, also known as the complementary rules of probability. So complementary rule is the probability of an event not occurring. So if we represent it in equation, we have here the probability of not event is equal to 1 minus p event. So saan nanggaling si 1? So sabi natin 1 is the measure of certainty. So na-discuss natin yan last time. This is our measure of certainty. So meaning this is the measure that an event, there is a 100% chance that the event will occur. So to get the probability of an event not occurring, we subtract the probability of an event. So yung ano natin dito is number of event. Excuse me, class. Okay, so dito alam natin yung equation for probability of event, which is, asa na yun? Number of event divided by the number of sample space. Ayan. So to get the complementary of this probability, we subtract it from 1. So suppose that we have outcome A. So the probability of the complement of outcome A is given by the probability of not A is equal to 1 minus the probability of A, or piece of A. So let's go back to our question. Second question. What is the chance that Senator Manny Pacquiao will not win the presidential election? So suppose na palitan lang natin yung color. Ayan. So, di ba alam natin that the equation is, ito yung equation natin. Yung equation natin is that, yan, P is not A is equal to 1 minus piece of A. So, if we answer this, let us first identify the given. So, we know the probability of Manny Pacquiao. So, let MP represent Manny Pacquiao. Yung probability niya is 1/6. So, yung equation natin for complementary is that P not MP is equal to 1 minus piece of MP. So, this is the probability of Manny Pacquiao winning the election, and this is the probability that Manny Pacquiao will not win the presidential election. So, 1 minus 1/6 is equal to 5/6. Tama ba? Yan. So, 1 minus 1/6 is equal to 5/6. So, let's convert it to i-convert lang natin. So, this is the probability of Manny Pacquiao not winning the presidential election. So, 5/6 or 83.33%. So, there is an 83.33% chance that Manny Pacquiao will not win the presidential election. So, that is the complementary. So, if something if we can measure that something will happen, we can also measure that something will not happen. That is a complementary rule. So let's go to problem number 3, or question number 3. So what is the chance that either BBM or Lenny wins the presidential election? So this is a disjoint outcome. So, kapag sinabi natin disjoint, hindi pwedeng mangyari yung outcome at the same time. So, meaning, hindi pwedeng nanalo si BBM at nanalo din si Lenny. So, isa lang sa kanila ang mananalo. So, ano yung tsansa na either si BBM or si Lenny yung pwedeng manalo? So, here we can apply addition rule. So, addition rule is used when measuring the probabilities of disjoint outcomes. So, this is for, so, palitan ulit natin yung color. So, this is for disjoint outcomes. Yan. So, addition rule states that the probability of obtaining only one of several different and distinct outcomes equals the sum of their separate probabilities. So, kung makikita nyo, pareho to yung ginawa natin dun sa previous examples natin sa pagbenta ng kotse. So, dito, we applied the addition rule. So, ayan. So, ibig sabihin, either of these will occur. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go back to our definition. Asan na tayo? Ayan. So, to get the probability of disjoint outcomes, we use this equation. So, the probability of event 1 or outcome 1, ayan, event 1 or event 2 is equal to the sum of event 1 plus event 2 or more. Kung more than 2 yung disjoint outcomes, then you just add it to the mix. So, i-add mo lang yung mga probabilities nila. So, ayan. So, if A or B, suppose that we have outcomes A and B. So, if A or B are two disjoint outcomes, then the probability that A or B occurs is given by piece of A or B is equal to the probability of A plus the probability of B. So let's answer our question number 3. So what is the chance that either BBM or Lenny wins the presidential election? So we know the probability of Lenny. So let L, wait, palitan ko ulit yung color. So let L represents Lenny and B represents BBM. So piece of L is equal to, we know that yung probability niya galing sa distribution table natin kanina is 1/6. And yung probability din ni BBM, so B, is also equal to 1/6. So we are talking about disjoint outcomes. So therefore, we will apply addition rule. So sa addition rule, sabi natin, to get the addition rule, we use the equation P. So sabihin natin na L or B is equal to the sum of the two probabilities, corresponding probabilities. So piece of L plus piece of B. So probability of L or B is equal to 1/6 plus 1/6, or is equal to 2/6. So if we get its percentage form, so there is a 33.33% chance that either si BBM or si Lenny ang mananalo sa presidential election. So that is for this joint outcome. So we use addition rule for this joint outcomes. So let's add to the mix our vice presidential. Suppose that we only have 4 vice presidentiables running for the position. So first we have Sara Duterte, second we have Kiko Pangilinan, third we have Doc Willie Ong, and fourth we have si Senator Tito Soto. So suppose sila lang yung ating candidates for vice presidents. So their chances of winning is given by the following probability. So 1/4, kasi 4 silang naglalaban, isang beses lang silang pwedeng mapili. So there is 1/4 chance that Sara will win, or Kiko, or si there is a 1/4 chance that si Willie Ong yung manalo, and the same with Tito Soto. So alam na natin yung probability ni na nung mga presidential. So alam natin na lahat sila merong 1/6 chance of winning kanina. So yung vice presidential naman, kunwari 4 lang sila, 1/4 lang yung chance of winning. Question: what is the probability that Lenny and Sara will win both the presidential and vice presidential race or election? So ito, take note yung end. So Lenny and Sara. So this event, this outcome are these are two independent outcomes. So kung titingnan natin, kapag nanalo si Lenny, hindi naman automatic sabihin na mananalo si Sara. Hindi naman automatic sabihin na hindi siya mananalo. So meaning the probability of Lenny winning will not affect the probability of Sara winning the vice presidential election. So let us now go to our solution. Ayan. Yung rule muna natin. So in this case, kapag ang outcomes natin are independent outcomes, we apply multiplication rule of probability. So wherein it states that the probability of obtaining a combination of independent outcomes equals the product of their separate probabilities. So we have here in symbol P, the probability of event 1 and event 2 is equal to the probability of event 1 times the probability of event 2. Suppose we have outcome A and outcome B. If A and B are two independent outcomes, then the probability that both outcomes occur is given by the equation P, piece of A and B, is equal to the probability of A times the probability of B. So let us now answer our question. So, yan yung question natin kanina. What is the probability that Lenny and Sarah will win both the presidential and vice presidential election? So, ano yung probability ni Lenny? So, let's suppose that this... Okay, sorry, naputol. So, ito na. So, Lenny... Let's suppose that Lenny is represented by L and Sarah is represented by S. So, the probability of Lenny, we know that there is a 1/6 chance that Lenny will be selected as the new president. And for Sarah, sabi natin, for vice president, meron silang 1/4 chance of being selected. So, these are independent outcomes. So, therefore, we need to apply the multiplication rule of probability. So, here, to get that, ito yung ating equation, the probability of L, N. Ayan. So, gumamit tayo ng N. S is equal to the probability of L times the probability of S. Or probability of Lenny times the probability of Sarah. So, probability ni Lenny is 1/6 and the probability of Sarah is 1/4. So, if we multiply these two, we will get 1/24. So, this is the probability that both Sarah and Lenny will win the presidential and vice presidential election. So, kung i-convert natin siya into percentage, 1 divided by 24, we have approximately 4.17% chance. There is 4.17% chance that Sarah and Lenny will be elected as our new president and vice president. Okay, part 3. So here's our question. So a defendant in a criminal trial has a 0.42 probability of being convicted of defamation, 0.26 probability of being convicted of cyber libel, and 0.32 chance of being found not guilty. Letter A, question, what is the probability of the defendant of being found guilty? B, what is the probability that the defendant will be convicted on any of the charge? And C, what is the probability that the defendant will be found guilty on both charges? So, you may pause this video and then review our discussion on the probability rules. Then, upload your answers in padlet.com part 3 under part 3 answers. So, resume after uploading your answers. Now, so let's discuss the answers to the problem. So, our given, we have here 0.42 probability of being convicted of defamation, 0.26 probability of being convicted of cyber libel, and 0.32 chance of being found not guilty. So, to answer letter A, what is the probability of the defendant of being found guilty? Let us first identify anong klaseng outcome ba ang meron dito. So, dito, we want to know the chance of being found guilty. So, look at our given. So, meron tayo ditong given. Ayan ang given natin. Meron tayong given measuring the chance of being found not guilty. So, not guilty and guilty are complementary outcomes. They complement each other. So, therefore, i-apply natin yung converse or complementary rule. So, yung given natin dito is being found not guilty. Ano yung hinahanap natin is guilty. So, probability of guilty, kasi hindi natin siya alam, is equal to 1 minus the probability of not guilty. So, baka malito kayo dun sa given, dun sa discussion natin, yung equation is not guilty is equal to 1 minus, P not A is equal to 1 minus P sub A. So, pwedeng magkabaliktaran, depende sa given. Kung ang given is yung not, then, yung hahanapin natin is yung, yung isa, yung complement niya. So, dito, 1 minus 0.32 is equal to 0.68 or 68%. So, there is a 68% chance that our defendant is guilty of the charges given to him. Letter B, what is the probability that the defendant will be convicted on any of the charge? So, meron tayo ditong clue. Sabi dito, any of the charge. So, kapag any of the charge, meaning, either one of the charges. He is guilty of either of the given charges against him. So, meron tayong defamation, meron tayong cyber libel. So, ano yung chance na ma-convict siya sa defamation or cyber libel? So, since this word hints us of disjoint outcomes, then na-apply natin yung addition rule. So, any of the charge. So, addition rule, suppose that this is A and B. So, piece of A or B is equal to piece of A plus piece of B. So, here we have 0.42 plus 0.26. So, the probability that the defendant will be found guilty on any of the charges, so either guilty siya sa defamation or guilty siya sa cyber libel, is 0.68 or 68%. So, yan ang chance na guilty siya on any of the charges. So, what about kung guilty siya sa parehong charge? Ayan. So, what is the probability that the defendant will be found guilty on both charges? So, again, let's suppose this as A and B. Ayan. So, since binigyan na tayo ng hint, both charges, so meaning both of this is, we want to know the chances that both of this is the outcome of the experiment. So, therefore, ayan, gagamitin natin yung multiplication. Kasi kung parehong mangyayari, those are independent outcomes. So, multiplication, piece of A and B is equal to piece of A times piece of B. So, you have here 0.42 times 0.26. So, the probability that the defendant will be convicted on both charges is equal to 10.92 ata to. Try natin. 0.42 times 0.26. Yan. Wait lang. Asan na yung pen? Okay, 0.1092 or 10.92%. So, meaning there is a 10.92% chance that the defendant is guilty on both charges. So, that's how you apply probability in real life situations. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you learned something. So, see you in our next synchronous and next video. So, by the way, this discussion, yung rules of probability, will also be included in your summative test. So, I will give it 2 weeks, 1 week from now, after we have our synchronous on the mean and how to find the mean, variance, and standard deviation of discrete probability distribution. So, see you in our next synchronous. Goodbye.